In RackForms, we have several different ways that we can update databases with data, and one of the most popular ways is with our builder repeater function. The builder repeater allows us to take an SQL statement, select the rows from that statement, show them to our users, and now, as we're going to see in this video, allow my users to update values and update individual rows within that value set. So we want to take a look at how we build forms like that. But before we actually get to rebuilding this, let me just show you what a finished version looks like right here. You notice that I have 2 columns worth of data, age and in this case name, along with an update record button, which allows us to update that row. So how do we actually build this? Well, I'm going to start here by adding a new builder page to my form, and I'm going to start by selecting my builder repeater and editing my SQL statement. Now in this case, I want to select a primary key field. In this case, it's ID, and then I'm going to select name and age. So we're doing this from the FB demo table. If I actually look at FB demo right here, I can see from my structure that ID is indeed my primary keyed field right here. And you'll notice that I have several sample records. So I'm selecting ID, primary key, name, and age from my FB demo table. Now the next thing that I want to do is display this information from this statement. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle the visual template editor, and I'm going to click Insert Template. And from my templates list, I'm going to select an update table. The update template then provides us with several default fields. There's some logic in the back here, the background that's actually performing the updates for us in terms of repeating the raw PHP. But 2 of the most important fields are this guy right here. This is the actual primary key field that's going to be affecting this update statement, and a submit button right here. Now what's important about this primary key field is right now it's set to ID. So this is the name of our database primary key for updates. It's set to ID, which works by default because that's what the name of our primary key field is right here. However, if your table has a different primary key name, we need to change this value to match that particular primary key name. But in this case, ID is fine because that's what our table uses. We also have 2 other fields, so I'm displaying ID and name, and we actually run this form right here. You'll see that that's what I get. I display the ID and name fields to my users. But we can always change our template to show other information. So let's say instead of ID, which is kind of worthless for most users, I actually want to show age. I'm going to go ahead and clear out the existing token, and from my token chooser, I'm going to select from the age column right here the update token. And what the update token will actually do for us is present us with a text field where the user can actually change the value. Now we can modify the token as needed. This list right here corresponds to this list of parameters right here. So you notice the first one is field, so in this case it's age. The type is a text box, and the data type is int. And finally my X size, that is how wide the field is 15. I want to change that to 5 characters wide. And now you'll notice when I do that, that field is a little bit skinnier. Okay, so let's write our update statement. At this point then, we're going to say our template is ready to go. To do that, I'm going to, with the builder repeater selected, scroll down to user update mode, and I'm going to select single row updates, and I'm going to write my update statement as I would in essentially any SQL update. So I'm going to say update FB demo, set name equals question mark, age equals question mark, where ID equals question mark. Now, if you've never seen these question marks before, these are what we call prepared statements. The idea here is instead of sending super unsafe raw SQL off to our server, we're actually only sending parameters off, right? So anytime we have a question mark, that's the only value that actually is controlled by the user. So they only get to change what the value of the name is, the value of age, and the primary key. They don't actually get to change the SQL statement itself. However, this does mean that we actually have to provide a value for these fields. That is, where does name get its value from? And it turns out it actually gets it from the repeater update variable list. And so I'm going to say name, age, and ID. That is, the first question mark is equal to the value of name as it sits in the form right here. The second one is equal to age as it sits in the form here. And then finally, we're passing an ID value. Now we don't actually need to do that. We can also use the dynamic variable picker. What this simply does is it looks at all the tokens that are in my form, and it simply says, you have a value of name, age, and ID available to us when I press that submit button. You notice now it actually creates that list for us right there. If I run this form now, we can see here that I can actually change the values, and when I click update record, this is now updating the raw values in the database right here. So we're essentially done. The closing remark that I'd like to make then about single row updates is that the alternative to single row updates, of course, is multi-row updates. And what's nice about multi-row updates is they're a lot easier to set up. All we have to do is write a select statement that includes a primary key of some sort, click multi-update, and RackForms does all of that work for us that we just saw automatically. So it creates the template, it adds the primary key and the SQL statements. The downside, and indeed the reason why we use single row updates sometimes, is we have much more control over the process. So when I use single row updates, of course, I have direct control over what my update statement is. So I can do things like aggregate data columns together, do summing, and so on. So we can be more advanced with the actual code that we use. What's more, we also have access to things like this right here. So one of the things that I can do after I run my update statement is run some PHP code. So maybe we have an auditing trail that we want to apply to our form. This is where we'd actually do that. We could use essentially any PHP code that we want in here, and this will get run after we run our update statement. So we can update an auditing table, we can send out an email notification, etc. So we have a lot more flexibility when we use single row updates as opposed to multi-row updates. The thing that we give up, of course, is a little bit of simplicity. Of course, if you have any questions about this or anything else that you see in RackForms, please let us know at info@rackforms.com, and thanks for watching.